Welcome back, aliens. My name is Navin Reddy, and in this video, we'll talk about LVTI. Now, don't go for a short form here. The full form is actually easy to understand, which is local variable type inference. Now, type inference in Java is not new. It's there from Java 8 as well. In Java 8, we use lambda expression where we specify the variables without specifying a type of it. Now, in Java 10, we got something new, which is using local variables without declaring with a data type. I know that sounds weird, right? Because we always say Java is a statically typed programming language, which means if you want to use a variable, first you have to declare the variable with the help of data type. It can be int, string, a class name, doesn't matter, but you have to declare a variable, and that too with the help of a type. Now in Java 10, it has changed for the local variables. It is optional now to specify the type. Instead of that, we can use a var keyword. That sounds weird, right? Because in Java from the start itself, we got this habit of using type, and now we are using var. Why in this world we need a var in Java? Now think about this. I know you are waiting for the code. We'll do that in some time, but understand why do we need this var keyword? Now if we talk about any software or building a project, yes, of course, we need to write good code, right? But then if you really think about writing a code, actually, reading code is more important than writing code, because writing will be done only once. That same code and same project will be read by multiple people at multiple instances. You know what? Anyone can write a code which a machine will understand, but it takes a great programmer to write a code which a human will understand. So you have to make sure that you write a code which is much more readable, which is much more maintainable. Now, coming back to Java, what happens is if you use class name, example, if you want to declare a variable, and if I go back to my code, so let's say we have a very big class name. So what you normally do is, let's say the class name is array list. So what you do is you say array list, and then you specify the object here, and then you say new array list. Now, so this is important because this is what is creating object, right? But then this line here is actually difficult to read. So basically we are trying to create an object of array list. Why you have to read in this format? You know, Java is known for its verbosity where reading is very easy, but this is one thing which we don't like, right? Sometimes we have a class name which is way bigger than what I'm talking about now. And that's why it says, what if you can just remove this part and make it var? And yes, you can do that in Java 10. So instead of using the type at the start, we can mention var, the variable name or the reference name, and then you can do whatever you want on this side. Now, to understand this in a basic way, let's start with creating normal variables. Now, this thing is actually applicable only for local variables. And if you can see the title itself, it talks about LVTI, which is local variable type inference. So that means it is applicable only for the local variable. Now, why only local variable? Why not instance variable? Is because in programming, when you create variable inside a class, which is your instance variable, they are meant for storage, right? And then when you create a variable inside a method, it is for the processing purpose. We don't actually store the local variables, right? We store the instance variable, and the local variables are basically there for the processing of the function or the method. So here I'm writing something inside a main method. That means it's a local variable. I can create a simple local variable here, which is int I, or let me say int a is equal to 9. Now this is you can create a variable, right? We can do the same thing. We can create an integer variable with the help of var keyword. So we can say var b is equal to 8. So you can see we got two variables, and both of these are integer type. So yes, we are used to this part because we are specifying a type of it, but this var is new introduction to Java 10. Now you might be thinking, this is statically type language, makes sense. This looks like more of a dynamically type language. Not exactly, since it is the type is assigned at compile time. Anyway, right? Compiler will do it for you. So even if you don't mention the type, compiler will say, okay, I got a variable b here, which is assigned 8. That means the type is int. Okay, so it is by default converting that for you behind the scenes. That's why it is still a statically typed language. Cool. So instead of using int, we can use a var here, and which makes much more sense. Now, the only caveat here is if you can create an integer variable like c, and if you don't assign a value to it, if you don't have an initializer on the right hand side, that's okay, because now at least we know the type of C. Of course, you can't use it, it will give you error, but at least it will not give you compile time issue. It will say, okay, there's a C which has an integer value. Let me just run this code once to verify. So what I will do is, I will just introduce this bit later. Let me go back to my terminal here, and let me compile this code. So we can say Java C, the file name is demo. Is it demo.java? No, it is still abc.java. Okay, let me verify. There's something wrong with my, okay, it is abc.java. Anyway, let's do that. So we'll say Java C abc.java, enter. And you can see we got no error. Even the var keyword works here, right? And then we can run this code by saying Java demo. And you can see, okay, there's no output because we are not printing anything. But important is it is working. Cool. Now let me introduce with this int c, and let me do it for var d. Now what do you think? Will it work? You can see this and this two lines have been introduced. And let me just compile this code once again. And you can see we got an error. It says infer type, cannot infer type for local variable d, cannot use var on a local variable without initializer, which means if you want to use a var keyword, it is compulsory for us to assign the value. You need an initializer there. So if you say 10, then it will work. Okay, so you have to assign the value. So save, go back and compile. You can see there's no error now. Okay, so you got the idea. How do we use this here? But what happens if you use it at the instance level? So let's say I have a number here and I want to say var num is equal to 10. I'm also giving the value there. Will this work? Let's try. So let me go back to my terminal and say run. You can see it says var is not allowed here. So that's one thing to remember. Cool. So we can't use it here. So let me just also write it here. This will give you error. Okay, cool. Now, since we are using var here, is it a reserved variable or reserved keyword? Let's try. Can I create a variable of integer type or maybe a string type variable? And can I say a variable name as var? And if I say this, Naveen, let's try. You can see, okay, there's an error. Oh, so I'm working with Solidity programming. Okay, go back and run. And you can see there's no error. So basically you can use var as your variable name, no issue. So you can use it as a variable name. You can use it as a keyword as well. So that works. But one thing, if you create a class, don't make a class name as var. This will give you error. So this will not work. So if I don't go back and compile, you can see it says var not allowed here. So class var not allowed. Var is restricted type name and cannot be used for type declaration. So remember this thing, var keyword cannot be used with a class name. Okay, this looks good. Anything else we can do here? How about an array? So normally example, if you want to create an array of numbers, so we say integer, int, then we say nums, and then we give a square bracket because that's what that's how we mention the array. And then you say new keyword. Again, you say int, and then you specify a type here, right? Which is the number here. Now this perfectly works, right? But what if you want to do that with var? Now, one of the issue with this syntax is if you are saying that it's an array on the right hand side, why you have to use a square bracket here? And that's why var says you can create the array like this. You don't need to mention that square bracket. Even if you do that, it will give you error. So you have to say new int 10. So this perfectly works. So it only works with this type of declaration. If you use static values, if you assign the values by default, it will not work. So remember this thing. If you're creating an array with var, do not put this square bracket. And let's see what happens if you put a square bracket. So if I come back here and put square bracket, compile, you can see we got an error. It says var is not allowed as an element type for an array. Okay. So let me remove this square bracket and compile, and you can see, okay, this time we have a different error. We still have this class, remove and run. You can see there's no error. Cool. So this is something you have to remember. This is how it works. You can use a var keyword there. In fact, you can also do that for another class object. So let's say if I have a class which is alien, and if I want to create object of alien here, can I do that? Yes, you can do that, and that too. So normally when you create object, you do that in this way, right? You say var obj equal to, so alien obj equal to new alien. What you can also do is you can also write var here, even that works. So you can see I'm creating a reference of type alien and compile, even this works. So yeah, that's the beauty of this var. Again, it was introduced in Java 10. So if you are doing this coding before any version below 10, it will give you error. This will not work. So make sure that you have JDK 10 or more installed. In this machine, I have JDK 17 and it is working perfectly. So that's about the local variable type inference. So that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section and do subscribe for further videos. Bye-bye.